Hi, I'm Seamless, and this is the 29th 75K tutorial. This one was requested by Aveiromusic, and it was from a Dyro track that sounds like this. From his track Like a Boss, which I don't even know if it's out yet or not. Apparently it was played at Tomorrowland, but that's what it sounds like, and this is what I got. That's a little better. So, if you've been following the channel in the last like 3 months or so, you might have seen a couple of videos of me talking about bells, and this is me applying that knowledge, but in a bit different way than you'd expect from what I've been showing in terms of using Harmor for it. The guy who requested this actually said he said the drop perk / FM bass. FM said actually he said, and there are a couple of ways that you could do this with FM. This kind of harmonic-y bellish sound. In the bell videos I talked about how control of harmonic motion, harmonic position, that kind of thing is what's most easily to create this kind of sound, and that's certainly true, and you can do that with FM. I just elected not to at the time. I'm still not doing it though, but I just want to tell you that it's possible to do that. In fact, I'm not actually doing a lot with this particular configuration to screw with the actual pitch of other harmonics to get them out of harmonic pitch. I am doing some pitch stuff. You can kind of see that's moving around up top there, and that's mostly to create the initial impact. And that's being caused by automating the harmonic unison pitch thickness to come down. I'm using Hertz mode, and I'm altering the pitch a little bit. So I also alter the prism, but I'm not even using the prism, so it's not really doing that. Part B is actually just a really simple filter pluck on a low end kind of thing to kind of fill out that kind of thing. Kind of, mix that in there to your taste, I suppose. What's causing the bell quality is the harmonizer. Now, the harmonizer in Harmor is a bit special. I actually moved it all the way down past the pluck, past the filter, and put the filter back up there, but I'm not doing anything with the filter. It is past the pluck, and the pluck is doing something, which is kind of important. However, it's going relatively slow. In comparison to my usual usage of it, so it might not be totally obvious. Turn that down a bit. Yeah. So let's talk about what the harmonizer does with a naked Harmor. So the harmonizer seems an awful lot like, especially in its default configuration, that's just playing, copies of the sound higher above individual notes, which is what it's sort of mimicking doing. But what it's really doing is that it's accentuating particular harmonics in the series, and it's doing it by multiplying a group of harmonics on the bottom and pasting that impression on the top harmonics and emphasizing that position. And it's doing that. The control of this is being controlled by the width and the strength knob. The width determines what group of harmonics is being copied, and then the strength determines how hard it is being copied. And then the amount is the overall amount. And then there's this entire grid thing here. We have offset, step, shift, and gap. Now, I don't really specifically know what these things are doing, but if you move them around, you can kind of see what they're doing. You do that enough, you can see how you can quickly arrive at sort of harmonic impressions that are seemingly not harmonically pitched anymore. And the reason for this is because while they are all harmonic, harmonics are not necessarily musical. You might be thinking to yourself, well, of course they are. But if you think about it, only the first couple of harmonics are really actually in a pitch version of that we accept as being part of the Western musical tradition. So the first not a harmonic, it's just a fundamental tone. Then we have the first harmonic, which is an octave, then a fifth, then an octave, then a major third, a fifth, a seventh, an octave, and then we start getting divisions that are in between the 12 steps that we are familiar with, and farther up there's a lot in between. And if those particular harmonics get pushed up and really pushed out, they might not be you know, out of phase with everything, but they're gonna sound enharmonic or inharmonic, one of those. And they're gonna sound like they're quote unquote wrong, which is what the metallic sound comes from when we're using a you know, a bell. Now, the reason for using that particular technique versus using the prism, which will literally move things out of pitch, is because the original sound, despite having that metallic texture to it, also very much felt like it was still in the correct harmonic pitch. It felt like it was still, like, you know, together a pitch, and it's low enough that we're not relying on the fundamental tone to carry the note rather, which is what a lot of my older bell experiments did, where it's mostly almost sine waves, high enough in pitch that when we add the other harmonic content, it doesn't really matter what they're doing because we're still mostly hearing the fundamental tone as being the actual pitch of the sound. And that's a bit more dangerous when you're playing that at, like, bass level tones. So that's why we're using the harmonizer to do this, because we're essentially still influencing almost non-musical harmonic control, but we're still doing it in harmonic pitch. And then I'm distorting it. I'm mixing between distorted, not distortion, and the distortion itself is also very low. I'm compressing it pretty heavily. It has some reverb. And that's the sound. At least in the version that I have. It would take me quite a lot of work to completely nail exactly the harmonic content present inside the sound. I also am pretty sure it is separate sounds. It's kind of hard to pinpoint exactly if it's separate. You can kind of see that there's some motion in the bottom, and then the higher harmonics seem a little bit separate. It could not be separate. It's totally possible. Kind of up to you whether or not you want to interpret either of those in that sort of light. Yeah. So this patch will be available for download in the description of this video. If you have any questions about this, please let me know. If you'd like to make a request for yourself, please do so in the Reddit thread linked in the description of this video. Requests made anywhere else will be ignored. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Did I already say that? And as usual, have a nice day. Yes.